Hey, so welcome to the demo of the CRWD Network, where we shortly present you the idea and the concept behind the first version of how the CRWD network will look like. So here you can see the basic infos, you have the technical paper, a video introducing it if you haven't seen that, and down at the bottom of the page you will find the actual projects you can invest in. But to get there, to be able to invest in projects, you will need a few things. They will all directly run on Ethereum. For this concept, please use the Ethereum testnet for everything. It's just testnet, fake money so far. So what we will need first is an installed MetaMask in our browser, which is the Fox over there, and our MetaMask account that should run on the Robston testnet. We'll need some Ethereum to create transactions, because transactions on Ethereum, also on Ethereum Robston, cost Ether, so we need at least one testnet Ether to create transactions. Easily requested here via the faucet, and again be sure to have selected the Robston testnet up here, not the mainnet. Don't want you to waste any actual money to play with the demo. We can also request is free tokens, basically the CRWD and the Euro token. There will be some form of stablecoin that represents euros or something similar that can be used to invest, because as we know, cryptocurrencies can be very volatile, and for like long-term investments of this case it would be better to have something stable for now, at least until cryptocurrencies are more stable themselves. You will also need CRWD tokens, which pay the fees to the platforms that you invest in. They source the projects and support you in decision making. Let's go to the investor key. What's the investor key? The investor key is basically what you will need to be able to trade in those regulated assets. We are here now in the regulated market. We are actually going to have regulated investments and loans and real estate projects on the platform. So we will need to be KYC verified to invest in them. And how will this work? As said, we'll need some testnet Ether to trigger the sign up. And what we need is like an investor key. An investor key is basically our account being linked to the platform and to our identity. And into the investor key we can write our identity data that can then be received by the parties that need them to be legally compliant to invest into their projects. So we click this generate investor key button, and already in MetaMask it says, okay, you want to make a transaction to create one. And this looks like this. It's kind of expensive because it's the biggest contract to push or to use. But it's just testnet Ether, so it doesn't matter right now, and we might get the costs down in the future on the real net. So we submit this and make our first real testnet transaction in MetaMask, creating our initial investor key, associating it with the Ethereum address we have. You can actually, if we click on this, see it on Etherscan that this is a transaction that's actually happening on the testnet. It will take a few seconds to be accepted. Especially on Robston, this can take a bit longer because Robston isn't always as stable as the mainnet, but you can still do the transactions, and it might take a little bit longer, especially for the big one at the beginning, but eventually it will get accepted in the block. Like now, so now it got accepted into the block and it's actually on Robston. Now we can trigger this second, or here it says point number 3 transaction, to actually link the first data with our investor key and our account. We actually now have a real investor key on the testnet, and this profile page will totally change because it recognizes, hey, this account holder has an investor key. So we haven't gotten our testnet Euro tokens or CRWD tokens yet. We can ignore it for now. We can focus on that a little bit later. They are just representative of the concept. So right now you basically get all of those things for free, but of course if you want to invest into a project you will need real euros, CRWD tokens and Ether. If it doesn't work the first try, just try it again. So what do we see on this page? We see the profile data, we see the profile access, we see our data, which no data is included yet because we haven't given any away. We just have created an investor key linking it to our Ethereum address. And now what we have to do is to go through KYC. We can add data actually manually as well, which will be on the ROPS testnet directly. But as a usual investor, you will go through a regular KYC check that will be sent to a third party that checks your identity documents with your real identity and checks back. Here on the plus. You could just add manual data. Let's go through the KYC check. Please here, be careful, enter just fake data. We are just on testnet. Don't push anything to Robson that you don't want. At the moment, just invent something. In theory, this will now go to a third party. The third party will see your documents that you submitted, your passport, for example, check it with your KYC data. Maybe it will also be biometric data or anything else, depending on the level of verification we need for the project you want to invest in. But for this case, you will do that once. Associate it with your key, sign it via MetaMask. And then this data will basically be forwarded to the identity service that checks your real identity with the one you've just given. What we can also do now is play around while we wait for this profile to be checked with the other pages here. You basically in the profile access see which keys and accounts have access to your identity information or to your identity page. Basically here it's just the management keys for now. In the future it can also be, for example, projects that you invested in that they can see a certain level of verification automatically if they need it to legally. So while we wait, we can also add some manual data just to try it out. For example, if we have a second email address that we want to associate with our investor key and we need it for some project or want to give another address to some project, we can do it here. Say, oh, this is an email address now for the test and add this data on Robson. Now we have to push this transaction as well to write it into our investor key profile. Let's reload this page to see if our data has been added. And here we see actually both has been added. So first the KYC check has gone through, great, the third party has checked our data. We can now approve it and add it to our page. And those are our second email that we added manually, got validated directly by the Robson chain. So we approve this here and then also sign it as a transaction. So we can say, oh, we are fine to adding this data to our investor key as it was verified by the other third party. And as soon as we have euros, crowd tokens, pay the fees, and Ether, and we have gone through the KYC check, we can actually go through investing into a sample project. This whole investor key process, you probably only have to go through it once, and then you'll be able to invest into all projects with the appropriate KYC level on the platform. So great, it's valid, it's on Robson, we are live, we can actually now invest into projects. And here we have now our first test project. So let's assume that's a project we would like. If we like this information we see here into this first test project, we can say, okay, we now decided to contribute 400 euro tokens to this project. Now one last thing we have to do is add the crowd sale contract and approve it to our investor key. That's necessary that the crowd sale contract can deduct the fees. And we push this. We already can see that the other 4 boxes we've already checked off beforehand. We won't have to do everything again for investing in every new project. Most of those things have only to be done once. So we can now buy into this project with 400 euros. We have 500, so this is fine. And say we buy into this project. So now again in MetaMask, because also the euro tokens are transmitted via Ethereum, it says, okay, you want to invest into this project. That's the Ethereum network fees. Great, let's submit this order and it will get pushed onto the testnet. So now under tokens actually, we can see the tokens we got. So, oh wow, we already got 400 first test token, how we call them, because it was the equivalent here of 400 euros you invest, gives us 400 tokens, a very easy convertible test transaction. So you can add that actually as well. It won't shine up automatically for you. You can add it under add token, basically you just have to add the Ethereum contract that this ERC20 style token is on. Here you have the contract address for the test token if you want to add it. And then you go to MetaMask and basically say add token, copy the address. It's 0 decimals at the moment, just for this case. And yeah, you have your first asset token that you can use on Ethereum. You actually can send it out with MetaMask right now, but you could do it with my Ether wallet. Sure, if you want to send your test tokens around, that it will only be accepted on verified Ethereum wallets, so you can only send those tokens to other wallets that are identified via their investor key to make sure to stay legally compliant. And I hope you like this first demo and look at the crowd network and keep investing into cool things.